Russell Wilson had an underrated season this year. As though he was regarded as being a bum by most, he played solidly. He was tied for 11th out of 35 in expected points added, which if you don't know what that stat means, I have a video that breaks it down. It's super useful because it can help evaluate quarterbacks, offenses, and defenses, so it's a real do-it-all stat. In addition to being really good in expected points added, Wilson was alright in quarterback rating, ranking 21st. His supporting cast was ranked number 15 based on the PFF grades of his offensive line and receivers, so him playing decently wasn't a result of just having a good team around him. He was actually playing well. In all, he ranked as my 16th best quarterback, so there should be a pretty clear upgrade in quarterback play from Kenny Pickett to Russell Wilson, as Pickett was my 22nd best quarterback with a pretty big jump between him and Wilson. At backup quarterback, Justin Fields is a great option as he's a low-end starter. Fields was my 21st best quarterback this year, so to have him as a backup is invaluable. As we shift to the supporting cast, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like because it makes a massive difference in how the video performs. And also be sure to subscribe as I'll be breaking down every team if I haven't already broken them down already. With that said, the offensive line for Pittsburgh is definitely on the upswing. They were 17th in pass block win rate and 12th in run block win rate, which are ESPN stats. I watched pretty much every single Steelers game this year, if not legitimately every game. And I'll tell you from my vantage point, the 17th in pass block win rate seems a bit generous. For a counter stat, PFF's pass blocking grade for them was second worst in the league. And if anything, I think I fall closer to that ranking than I do 17th. So take that 17th ranking with a grain of salt. I don't think that it's entirely accurate. Compared to last year, they should be solidly improved in pass protection, so maybe they actually will be deserving of a 17th pass block ranking this year. Troy Fautanu should be a noticeable upgrade over Dan Moore, as the average first-round tackle has a 64 PFF grade their rookie year, which is a fair bit higher than Moore's 54 grade last year. Additionally, Mason Cole was a real issue in pass protection last year, which should not be as much the case with Nate Herbig or Zach Frazier, as second-round interior offensive linemen average a 61 PFF grade, which is higher than Cole's 57 grade last year, which, to give you some perspective, Cole is an excellent run blocker, so the fact that he had an overall 57 grade is really troubling because that just shows how poor he was in pass protection. I don't remember exactly what his ranking was, but I believe he was in the bottom 5, if not bottom 3, for pass protection for centers, and that really showed on tape as well, as there was continually pressure coming up directly from the middle. Lastly, Broderick Jones will have another year of development, so things will be looking up for the line, as Jones will also be playing in the correct position, as he will be the left tackle and not the right tackle. So that's all really good for the Steelers line. It's very promising. They have a bit of a youth movement going on, as they have a ton of new young talent coming in addition to having 2 solid guards in James Daniels and Isaac Samalu. So that's pretty good stuff for their line. Their depth is pretty good too, as though Moore was a problem as a starter. He's a good backup tackle, as he can run block really well. And Nate Herbig or Zach Frazier are good options on the interior as well. Mason McCormick was drafted in the 4th also as another interior depth option. Interior offensive linemen drafted in the 4th since 2019 average a poor 53 PFF grade, which would rank as 95th out of 128th. So he could be an alright backup, but not someone you want to see a lot of early on, at least. Regarding their weapons, they're amongst the worst in the league. George Pickens is a bit of a one-trick pony, as he mainly wins deep, and if he's not winning deep, he's winning with a slant route. But it's a good trick, as he was 20th in yards per game and first in yards per reception with really poor quarterback play. So he is a super talented player, even if he is not the most versatile. I think sometimes it can be a little bit overly talked about with how limited his route running is, because yes, you would like him to be more versatile, but at the end of the day, he's having success with what he does. And again, he's not getting the most help from his quarterback. It's one thing if he's putting up really solid numbers with a great quarterback, but he's putting up legitimately great numbers with a poor quarterback situation. So I think he's fine. He can develop in some areas, like deepening his route chart some, but that's about it. He's a really talented player that doesn't get talked about enough outside of the Pittsburgh circle, but gets talked about a lot within that circle. So I think sometimes he's overrated and other times he's underrated. Next is Van Jefferson, who was really not good this year, as he was 207th in yards per game and 82nd in yards per reception. So he was not a chain mover. He won downfield with some proficiency, so he was somewhat efficient, but that's about it. He is not a good player. Lastly, for receivers is Roman Wilson, who will likely be the slot wide receiver, as that's what he did a ton of in Michigan. He was drafted in the 3rd, which means he should be a solid contributor, as wide receivers drafted in the 3rd average a 65 PFF grade, which would be higher than Quez Watkins' 59 grade this past season. Pat Freiermuth is a really good tight end option, though he did have a real down year this season, being 27th in yards per game among tight ends and 24th in yards per reception among tight ends. He has a ton of potential when he's healthy, though, which was a chunk of his issue last year. He wasn't healthy. For reference, the year prior when he was in a greater health, he ranked 6th among tight ends in yards per game and 11th in yards per reception among tight ends. That's really good stuff, especially considering he also didn't have great quarterback play, so he was doing it the hard way. Moving to running back, there's 2 really key contributors for them, and we'll start with Najee Harris. He might not have a good yards per carry, but he is a decent running back, ranking 21st out of 59 halfbacks in PFF grade, which I like because it contextualizes what the running back themselves are doing and kind of takes away the value of the offensive line and situation, because the offensive line could run block, but with teams knowing that they were going to be running a lot, they stacked the box a fair amount and just sold out to stop the run. So Harris didn't always have the clearest of lanes to get into. So the PFF grade, I think, is valuable. Depth-wise, Quez Watkins is okay as a 4th option, but what really gives the Steelers hope is their backup running back and tight ends. Jaylen Warren, who is one of the most underrated players in the league, in my opinion, is a great running back too, ranking 13th in PFF grade. McCole Pruitt is a solid tight end, as is Connor Hayward, and possibly even Darnell Washington if he meets his sky-high potential at 6'7", 264 pounds, which is really incredible athleticism, considering the fact that he ran the 40 in 4.64 seconds, which is just elite. That is what you see for a small tight end, not a gigantuan one. So the potential for Washington is sky high. With all of this said, the elephant in the room is Brandon Ayuk, who might be on the move to the Steelers. If he is, that changes things quite dramatically, as Ayuk is a top 5 receiver in this league. So if the Steelers do get Ayuk, and they get him for, say, a first-round pick, and maybe some later-round picks as well, I think that the Steelers' weapons go from being in the bottom 5 of the league to being above average at a minimum. I think Ayuk does carry that much weight, and it puts everybody into the correct positions where Ayuk can be that bona fide number 1 receiver that he is. Pickens can be a fantastic number 2 receiver. And then Roman Wilson will be a solid slot option as the 3rd receiver. And then Freiermuth can be sort of just a guy in the mix as a baseline, but also a high-end contributor as his high-end ceiling would look like. So if the Steelers do get Ayuk, that changes things quite dramatically, and it would give their rankings a pretty big boost as well. I would say they would move up 2 to 3 spots, maybe even 4 spots from where they're ranked. So that would be pretty big for the team as a whole also. At cornerback, the Steelers are set at 2 of their 3 corners and have a big question mark at the nickel. Joey Porter Jr. ranked 63rd out of 127 corners in PFF grade. He's got the athletic profile of an elite corner as he's 6'2" and ran a good 4.46 40. He's also super physical, sometimes to a fault, but he's learning how to play in the NFL and has sky-high potential because most rookie corners struggle mightily in their rookie year, especially second-round rookies. But Porter Jr. showed a ton of flashes and just improved throughout the year and is somebody to watch out for because if he can just continue to figure out what physicality is ideal in the NFL, because it is very different from what is allowed in college, Porter Jr. could be one of the premier corners in the NFL one day. Dante Jackson is also a super athlete as he ran a 4.32 40, which is insanely good. He was graded 63rd by PFF for all corners. Historically, he is all over the place in his rankings, so who knows where he'll be next year. He's a man coverage specialist, and the Steelers run a ton of man coverage, so he should be in his element. But again, he's been really poor to alright throughout his career, so I don't have the highest hopes for him. I also was a little bit heartbroken by the Steelers trading Deontay Johnson for Dante Jackson, which is a bit of a tongue twister. So I'm a little bit skeptical just based on that alone, but I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can be when I talk about Jackson especially. One person I won't be totally unbiased about, though, is Cameron Sutton. He is not a good person. At nickel, this is where things get murky, where Sutton plays. It's unclear who will be starting for the first 8 games, as Sutton serves his suspension for being a terrible guy. Right now, it seems like Grayland Arnold will be their starter. He played 113 snaps in the nickel for Houston last year, which is roughly 10% of the snaps a full-time starter will see, so he has very little experience. At safety, they are very well set. Minkah Fitzpatrick ranked 20th out of 95 safeties in PFF grade. He's great against the run and very good in coverage too. He just has super high awareness and is always in the right position to make plays on the ball. He played 100 plus snaps in the box at slot corner and at free safety, so he's versatile in every sense of the word. Moreover, with Minkah, he was 3rd out of 88 safeties in 2022 per PFF, so the talk of him like he's one of the absolute best is actually justified. It's not just Steelers fans being homers. And Deshaun Elliott was graded 36 out of 95 safeties according to PFF. He was an elite 9th in run defense grade and an alright 62nd in coverage, so he is a solid all-around contributor. Like Minkah, Elliott played 100 plus snaps in the box, slot cornerback, and at free safety. Elliott is also super consistent as he has 3 years in a row, ranking 45th or higher in safety rank. So he is a very good player, and he's been good for years, which is rare to see for defensive backs because year to year they struggle to be consistent because there's scheme changes and there's just different matchups that make things difficult. But Elliott is great all around. Regarding their defensive back depth, Damontae Kazee is a good third safety. He ranks 71st out of all safeties this year, so he's a low-end starter or nice backup. He, unlike the others, specializes in coverage and is mainly just a free safety, but that works. They have 3 good safeties to rotate, so that's nice. On the D-line, Pittsburgh is elite. TJ Watt finished 7th out of 122 in edge pressures. He's also extremely good against the run as well. Probably, I'd say, in the top 3 for all edge rushers in defending the run. So he is an excellent player. He drops into coverage very infrequently, but when he does, he can do a good job at that also. So that helps in disguising coverages and giving unique blitz looks in the rare opportunities he does get to drop into coverage. But Watt is such a good pass rusher. You want him rushing the passer every snap. It's not just Watt, though, that contributes, as Alex Highsmith ranked 13th for edge pressures. Like Watt, Highsmith is also quite good against the run, so they set the edge very well. On the interior, Larry Ogunjobi was 33rd out of 142 in defensive interior pressures. He isn't good as a run defender, but can really get after the quarterback, so he does have some value. Cam Hayward is still really solid too, being 67th for defensive interior pressures despite missing 6 games. Unlike Ogunjobi, Hayward is quite good as a run defender too, so between the edge rushers and Hayward, the Steelers have a good run defense for their defensive line. Even if they don't have the greatest overall run defense, they have building blocks at least, and that'll be something we touch upon later as well. As for their depth on the defensive line, Keanu Benton is a great defensive tackle / nose tackle option as well, as he was 53rd in defensive interior pressures, and is alright against the run too. Montravius Adams is also a solid pass rushing interior, and Nick Herbig showed a ton of promise in limited reps as a third edge rusher, particularly against the run, which you rarely see for young edge players, as they can generally rush the passer with some proficiency, but they don't have the strength or technical ability to defend the run with super high proficiency. Lastly, Marcus Golden is possibly the best edge 4 in the league, so their depth is absolutely ridiculous. The linebacker core is really solid as well. Patrick Queen ranked 24th out of 82 linebackers in PFF grade. He's very good in coverage with his great athleticism, and he is quite solid against the run as a pass rusher as well. So he's a real do-it-all linebacker. That's nice that he defends the run as well as he does, because Landon Roberts was 27th out of 82 linebackers in PFF grade. He historically has struggled in coverage, but was 24th out of 77 this year in PFF coverage grade. It remained a very good thumper in the run game as well. So between Queen and Roberts, they have the linebacking run defense on lock. And that's great because they have the edge rushers that can set the edge really nicely, and Hayward and Benton can defend the run. But rotational guys aren't quite as equipped to defend the run, so it's nice to have those good building blocks that you can generally always have on the field to defend the run. Because that's one thing the Steelers have been a bit squishy over the years, which isn't really like the Steelers. They historically have stopped the run really well. But in the recent past, they've been getting gashed a bit in the run game. So I think this year might be a bit different in that regard. The depth at linebacker for the Steelers is really good as well, as Kollmann is a versatile linebacker that can defend the run at a high level and cover solidly. Peyton Wilson was drafted in the third, too. He would have been drafted much higher if not for injury concerns, so he's another solid option. Third-round linebackers since 2019 average a poor 51 PFF grade their rookie year, which would be good for 83rd out of 89 linebackers, but Wilson shouldn't have lasted until the third, so he should be better than that. In all, Pittsburgh is a very up-and-down team. Russell Wilson is better than he is usually given credit for, and Justin Fields is a legit backup as well. Their offensive line should be quite improved this year, and it wasn't totally devoid of talent in the first place. The receiving options are very limited beyond Pickens, but they do have a good run game that will likely mitigate that issue somewhat. Defensively, they have the potential to be elite, as their defensive backs are good enough, and then their defensive line is about as good as anyone's in the entire league, especially on the edge. There's really good depth to ensure guys get breathers, and they're well off if anybody gets hurt, too. Their linebacker core is also very good, and it's deep as well, with Kollmann being one of the best linebacker threes in the league. And of course you have Mike Tomlin, who gets the most out of his guys basically every single year. Those are my thoughts on the Steelers. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section, and also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.